All right, now that we have gushed over the Ravens, let's move closer to where Pete is in Florida. Pete, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you move them up 6 spots from 17.
Your biggest riser.
To 11. Did you only do that because you took them in your Super Bowl draft last week? Be honest.
Yeah.
No, I took them because I think one thing they're doing is getting healthy across the board, which is important because they.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Pete froze.
Pete's having a stroke.
Bucks froze Pete.
No,
that's a shame. That's how
somebody
Pete
go start.
Baker Mayfield's playing out of his mind. He really is. And again, I go back to what I tell you the story all the time. I saw him in May. I went there in May, spent time with them at minicamp. We talked to Baker. We talked to the people in the organization, all the front office, Jason Light, everybody convinced Baker was going to be that guy. And I was convinced watching him practice and the way he worked with Dave Canales that he was going to have a big year. Then we came back in July and it was a quarterback competition. And it was legitimate. It wasn't made up. He was, and the day we watched him practice, he was awful. He threw 3 picks. It looked like he was pressing. So I kind of backed off them a little bit because I thought they would win the division in May. And then I said, nah, maybe not. Maybe the Saints will. But I'll tell you what, I give all the credit. And I love a quarterback who plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he does. He does. And so I think it's a great story, and I think he's really playing well. And they're getting better. They're going to be a team. You know, nobody's talking about them as the team nobody wants to play in the postseason either, by the way.
Well, on that note, let me ask you a 2-parter right here. Number one, if they win the NFC South, they're probably locked into the 4 seed, playing the 5 seed, who appears to be the Dallas Cowboys. Can they beat the Cowboys in the wild card round? And would you lock up Baker Mayfield long-term as soon as the season ends?
They can beat the Cowboys in the wild card round at home, A. And B, yes, I would lock them up. I wouldn't go crazy on the numbers, but I would find a way to keep him. I'd find a way to give him a contract that he's my starting quarterback for the next 2 years.
$35 million a year?
What's Daniel Jones's deal average right now?
It's more than that.
Yeah, but it's funny money, though. There's a lot of funny money in it. So I do something where I could get 2 years out of them and then see where it goes from there.
And the other thing that's worth
what are
noting
your options if you don't have a court? If you don't have them,
no, I agree with that. And the other thing that's worth noting that it feels like we talk about it, but people forget about it. You got to get the right coordinator in there. Dave Canales has done an awesome job. Like Byron Leftwich, they were frustrated with him. They moved on from him. That was Bruce Arians' guy, and they got Dave Canales, who's by all accounts pushing the right buttons. And I think that's a big part of why. Because when Baker was leaving Cleveland, it didn't make sense the way that Stefanski was using him, even though Stefanski's good. And it felt like he needed a fresh start. And
he was
a couple
hurt,
stops.
though, in the last year. People forget that.
And they kept throwing the ball. That's why I don't understand.
Yeah. But here's the other thing about Canales, and Todd Bowles told me this, and he said it before elsewhere, but he didn't know Dave Canales. He didn't know him. He brought him in for an interview at a suggestion of somebody, and then was so impressed with him, he brought him back a second time and hired him. He didn't have any background. Well, usually these guys hire their friends, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's refreshing. And Canales has done a really good job with Baker Mayfield in that offense.